All right, so since the simulator doesn't have access to our actual data, what we need to do is log it. So to get started, just launch the simulator. You can just type in simulator to launch the simulator. And then once you have it running, you don't even need to use Xcode yet. Go into health. And from health, in the bottom right-hand corner, you hit to see all the stuff that health has access to. Go to body measurements and scroll down to weight. So I'm going to make a little app that will read the user's weight.
How do you get to that simulator?
Yeah, so again, just run the simulator by going simulator. You can hit the little, this is the same thing up here, the little search box or command space on the keyboard. Run the simulator, go into health, go into, on the far bottom right, there's all the different things you can set, and hit body measurements and scroll down to weight. From here, I'm just going to put in 3 data points into just 3 different random measurements of weight. So we'll say today I weigh 300 pounds. We're going to add data and put in yesterday, just so we have it. Yesterday I weighed 200 pounds. And the day before that, I weighed 100 pounds. So now the simulator has health data, only has 3 data points in the entire app, but we're only going to use those. So it has today, yesterday, and the day before. Okay, make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Just remember today is 300 because we're going to have it look at everything, but just get the most recent data point in our app. Okay, so that's the simulator, and that's set up to ready to rock. So now I'm going to bounce over to Xcode and go File, New Project. And I'm going to make a little health demo. So we're making an iOS app. Note that you can use HealthKit with watchOS. It's that it is one example of the data that syncs quasi-automatically between the phone and the watch. There are some weird things you have to do for watch, so if you're going to do it, just talk to me and we'll figure it out. But for now, iOS app, standard issue thing, like I always do. So make sure interface is set to SwiftUI and language is set to Swift. All right, so we're not going to do anything with this. The canvas is actually useless if we're going to be using HealthKit data because it doesn't have any HealthKit data. So I'm just going to go ahead and hide the canvas just so I have more real estate. And we're going to work from here. Okay. Now, before we do anything, let's set up this project to be able to read HealthKit data. And so this is one of those, like, ChatGPT is not going to tell you how to do it. Like, it's just like a very specific thing. So the first thing we're going to do is go up here to here. In the same way that we set up see a location request, we had to do the same thing for HealthKit. So go into this right here. Make sure the target is selected for this app itself is selected, and then hit info. And this pulls up the plist file. This is the same plist file we were messing around with location. And for this one, we're going to add 2 different things, which is we want to share data and we want to use data out of HealthKit and ask for permission for those 2 things. So just like for location, I'm going to roll over any one of these entries in the plist file, and you'll see that it has a little plus sign next to it. Make sure you hit the plus sign, not the minus sign. Bad things happen if you hit the minus sign, so hit the plus sign. And you can just scroll down to privacy, space, hyphen, health, and you'll start to see what we're looking for. So there we go. All right, so I'm not going to use health records. I'm not going to use, the things I am going to use are health share and health update. So share means I can retrieve information out of HealthKit, and update means I can put information into HealthKit. So I want to get share, and that caused Xcode to crash. My bad. Well, not my bad, not my fault. All right, let's relaunch and try that again. All right, so here's where we were. All right, so I don't think it messed that up. All right, we're good. So I'm gonna hit the plus sign, scroll down to privacy, -HealthKit. We'll start with share. So I'm gonna hit share, and then type in the message a user will see when I request to have data. So this is like, the user sees this share request. And then I'm gonna hit plus again. And so we're not just going to request to share it, but we're also going to request to update it. So privacy -health update usage data or usage description. Make sense? Cool. Okay, so now that's the messaging the user's going to see when we send a request. The last thing we have to do is actually enable HealthKit with this app. And so what I'm going to do is select make sure I'm selecting target again, and then hit signing and capabilities. This is the same place that I would have done app groups before, but this time I'm going to hit the plus sign and add HealthKit. So I'm going to scroll down, find HealthKit, it's right there. Double click on it. And this will add the capabilities for HealthKit. It will not work if you don't have a valid developer account. It doesn't need to be a paid developer account, it just needs to be a developer account that Apple recognizes. And you can see right there it says team, and then there's me there at the top. If this errors out, it's probably because you're not logged into your developer account, and so you just need to hit that and log in. You'll know that it's working if there's no spinning wheels at all, then everything looks good. Okay. So now I've added the capability of HealthKit, and I've added the PBUS file for HealthKit, and Apple hasn't given me any error messages, so that means this has been properly synced up with their servers to say, yes, you're a valid developer who can do HealthKit data. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. Now let's actually write some HealthKit code. So I'm going to go back into Content View, and we're going to do all of our work here inside of Content View. You'll see a lot of different tutorials on the internet that will do different places. I like to do it right here because it's a lot easier to demo and show off the data. If you're going to make queries from HealthKit from multiple pages, it might make sense to centralize this just inside of the content view. But this is for quick demo purposes. We'll do it this way. So the first thing we need to do is enable the ability to do HealthKit. So I'm just going to import HealthKit. And this will just do the same thing as when we imported MapKit or any other stuff that we've done. This just adds that superpower to the code, and so it will be able to get that. And then outside of the body is where we're going to do most of our work right now. So up here, I'm going to set up a variable, and it's going to be a variable that's accessible outside of this content view. So I'm going to say public let health store. So I'm going to create a variable called health store. And in it, I'm going to store an HK Health Store. An HK Health Store is just a conduit, in HK's for HealthKit. So HK Health Store is the conduit into the health repository that will send all of our queries and requests. So there we go. Now we have, and I'm going to, again, turn off the canvas because I don't need it, and that'll give me more real estate for some very long code I'm about to start writing. So there we have that, and then what we're going to do is create another function called request permission. We can name this request permissions anything. So if you had multiple request permissions, like you're requesting permission for location data too, you might call this like request HealthKit permission or whatever. And then here's where we're going to just set up what kind of data we want to request out of HealthKit. It's going to look more complicated than requesting location data, because it is, but it's the same basic ideas. I'm just going to say, hey, may I please have this? And if the user says yes, then I do something with that. And if they don't, then I do something different. Okay? So from here, the first thing I'm going to do is set up what I'm asking permission for. So unlike location data or some of the other stuff we ask for permissions for, HealthKit has so much information, it's not going to give you access to everything. You have to ask for specific data types out of the HealthKit repository. So like I said, this app is going to be pretty dumb. It's just going to get the user's weight. What's nice about that, it doesn't, like I said, doesn't change very often, and it's quantity based, so it's much easier to deal with. It's just numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and set up and say this is the type of data that I want. So I'm going to make a variable called data types. You could call it anything you want. And it is a set. So right now we're only going to add, which is basically an array. This is an array of different data types that we want to request for. I'm only going to ask for one, so this array is going to be 1 unit long, but it could be many units long, just separated by commas. So what I want to get is body mass, and I've already looked up that the weight is called body mass, and that I've looked up that and know that body mass is a quantity type. So I'm going to type this and then show you what you would change if you were to do something other than a quantity type, and show you what you would change if you do something other than body mass. So first, inside of this set is an HK object type. So HealthKit object type. And the type that I want is a quantity type. And you say, see it says for identifier, now I have to tell it which quantity type I want. So the quantity type that I want is body mass, HK quantity type. I might have misspelled that. HK quantity type identifier.
You put MK.
Thank you, not MK. Thank you very much. All right, cool. And then at the very end, I throw an exclamation point here because I know that that is a valid type. There are some things inside of HealthKit that, depending on the version of the operating system the user is using, isn't available in those previous versions, so you got to do some fancier stuff here. But for our purposes, body mass goes all the way back, so we'll be fine. If you want to use something fancier, talk to me and we'll figure it out. So let's look at what you would change if you weren't doing a quantity type. Let's say you were doing a characteristic type. Quantity type you would set to characteristic type there. HK quantity type identifier, you'd say HK category type identifier, and then whatever the category type that you want. So this is the stuff that you would change. Cool? If you wanted more than one, then you could separate them by commas. So for instance, if I wanted to get a different quantity type, so let's say we wanted remember I was telling you there's even more than what we can see in that one thing. You can see here, you know, if you want to get their blood alcohol content, you can pull it there. Or down here, dietary is even crazier. These are all the different aspects of food that you can check to see what they've consumed. If they've logged it, then you get all this stuff. So if you want to know how much zinc they ate, then you could say dietary zinc, and that's how you would get more than one. But we're just going to ask for just weight. Okay, so now we know what type of thing we're going to ask for permission for, and so now let's go ahead and request that permission. We're going to go into this health store that we've set up, so into this connection, and we're going to run the method request authorization. And you can see that request authorization gets three things: what you want to ask permission for to share, what you want to get to ask permission for to read, and what do you want to do once they've completed the permission dialog box. So to share, let's say you didn't want to read data type, the body mass, you would just say nil to say I don't want to share anything, or I'm sorry, to update. And to read, let's say I just want to read the user's weight, I'd say then use data types for that. But that's not what I want. I want both to share and to read to be set to data types. So now I'm going to ask for permission to both share and to read their weight. And then the completion here is a little bit more complicated. So it's a completion handler just like the other ones we've done. Inside of here I have to handle two different states. I have to handle if there was a success and if there was an error. And so let's first do if there's an error. And otherwise, we can assume it was a success. And so what do you want to do if it was a success? For now, all we're going to do is print success. But in a second, we'll actually do something with that. Oh, okay. Here, we'll do it this way. If it was success, then success. Otherwise, it's an error. Sound good? Okay. Now we're actually ready to run it. So we've just set up this request permissions. We actually haven't run this function yet. So in the same way, we have on appear that we've used for requesting permission for location data. I'm just going to add down in my body, attached to the VStack, and on appear. And specifically what I want to have happen on appear is request permissions. So it's going to run that request permission function that we just wrote the moment the view appears, or specifically this VStack appears. So let's build it. Bloop, 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 bleep, bleep, bleep. And if I bounce over to my simulator, it thinks for a little bit and pops up the request permissions dialog box. So this is standard. We don't have any control over this, and you can see that it's asking for the weight and to write to it, and it's asking for the weight to read to it. And underneath that, you can see app explanation here. This is the text I typed into that plist file for each one. So I'm going to go ahead and grant myself permission to read and write to weight and hit done. Make sense? Okay, cool. If you want to double check it, you can go to weight to the HealthKit app, and down here, it will show you all the apps that have been given permission to read and write that data. And so you can see my app is right there. Okay, so now we have permission to do it. And so now let's actually start querying the data store and do information with it. So I'm going to add a little bit to my error handling here to make it more useful. If we had gotten an error, it would have just said error down here and not actually told us anything. So I'm just going to copy and paste in here for posterity's sake. This will help you debug if you want it in the future. So don't just give me an error, tell me what the error is, and this will tell you what the actual error in your code is. And I got this wrong someplace. There we go. So that will actually print out what the error message is down here if you want it. Okay. Next, what we're going to do is go ahead and if it's been successful, go ahead and run another function which will request the weight change or request weight information. So I'm going to call this function fetch weight data. Doesn't exist yet, but you could call it anything you want. All right. So this will run after we've been successful. And so now I need to go ahead and make that function. So outside of the request function, request permissions function, and above or outside of the body, I'm going to make another function called fetch weight data. And this is where the meat and potatoes of the work with HealthKit is going to happen. So the first thing we're going to do is repeat the data type that we have up here. So I'm literally just going to copy and paste this data type. So copy, paste. And so we're going to use this to tell HealthKit which data that we actually want to get. Now, like I said when I was describing how HealthKit works, every data type isn't just a number. It's a number at a moment in time, and that moment in time can go all the way back to the beginning of the users ever using HealthKit. So it can be huge. And so we need to pick a date range of when we care about for this stuff. And a date range is called a predicate. So in a date range has a start date and an end date. So to get the end date is really easy. We've used this before. What's one of the nice things about Swift is that I can just do that, and that is the moment in time that end date is ran, or this code is ran, end date will become that moment in time, and it's nice and easy to get right now. But what I also want to do is get a start date. And there's a couple different ways you can get start date. You could construct a start date using all the, date construction stuff we've already learned. Or for me, I think it's way easier just in real time to say, hey, give me just a week's worth of data. And so I'm going to do that with this. You can use this time interval since now feature inside of date, which is pretty cool. And it's measured in seconds. So what I want to do is say, I want to go back in time a week. So if it's measured in seconds, then a week ago is -7, because there's 7 days in a week, and I'm going backwards in time, so it's negative, times there's 24 hours in a day, times there's 60 minutes in an hour, times there's 60 seconds in a minute. So if the date interval is measured by seconds, then you can just read it backwards to see how it works. So I want 60 seconds, there's 60 seconds in a minute, there's 60 seconds in a minute, there's 60 minutes in an hour, there's 24 hours in a day, and 7 days ago is a week ago. The important part about this date interval, like let's say if you wanted to go back even further and you wanted to get everything for the past year, you take all this and multiply it times 52, right, to say, okay, it's 52 weeks in a year. Or you could multiply, instead of times 7 times 52, you could multiply the 24 times 365, right, if you wanted, that kind of thing. The important thing is whatever you do for this start date, one of the numbers needs to be negative, because we're going backwards in time. We don't want to know what my heart rate is going to be in an hour, because we don't know that yet, right? We just want to go backwards in time. Thumbs up? Okay, awesome. So I now have an end date, which is now. I have a start date, which is a week ago. And now what I need to do is take these two and combine them with, or combine them to create a date range. And again, a date range is called a predicate. So let's make a predicate. And you can see that a predicate for samples has a start date, an end date, and one of the things is options. So we're going to pick one with options, and I'll explain why in a second. The start date is this start date that we've created already. That's easy. The end date is the end date that we've created already. That's also easy. And the options this is a little bit funky. There's a lot of ways that you can manage this query to kind of optimize for speed and things like that. But I'm just looking for weight, which isn't a crazy amount of data, and I'm only looking for weight over the course of a week. So it's not going to come up with something nutso. But if you were to say, like, give me every heart rate reading for the past decade, that would take a long time for the phone to be able to crank through and get that. And so there's some ways you can optimize it here inside of this predicate setting. But what I'm going to do is use this right here, which is called strict start date. What's strict start? And just really enforces this is the predicate that I want. I don't want to optimize anything. I want exactly what I've told you is what I want. And I can get away with that again because I'm making a pretty simple query. Okay, so once I've created my predicate, I'm going to go ahead and combine that along with the data type up here to create my query into HealthKit, and then we'll actually run the query. So first, let's make the query sample. And you can see that it's going to have, which one do I want? This one. I want to make a query that uses a sample type, which I have up there. That's the data types. It uses a predicate. Great. I already got the predicate. A limit, which I'll explain in a second. Sort descriptors, explain in a second. And last but not least, a results handler, which is the same type of results handler that we've been having, which is what do you want to do when it's done? Because again, this is running outside of the main timeline of the app. It's this little side quest to make this request. So that's the one I want. And it gives me a ton of code, but it's just straightforward. So the sample type is this data type that I have right here. This is what I care about. However, it's an array, this right here. So I want to just tell it, just get me the first thing in the array. So I could have coded this so it wasn't an array at all, but I did. So got to do it this way. If you want more than one query, then if you want more than one piece of data out of HealthKit, then you would just do more than one thing. So instead of saying first, you could say, for instance, like that. Or you could say, if there was just two of them, you could do it like that and just get the second one, that kind of thing. But I'm just going to use first. Okay. Next, the predicate we've already constructed, so that's right up above. So that's just called predicate. Limit. What do you want to limit your response to? So if you wanted to say, for instance, only give me 1,000 responses or something like that, you could do that. But again, I don't want any kind of limits in the same way I don't want to optimize that query. So I'm just going to say HK object query no limit. So now I get every single data point, don't limit it at all, give me everything. Sort descriptors, if I wanted to, I could sort the data when it comes back. So this would be useful, for instance, if you wanted to get what was my highest heart rate in the last year. You could get everything from the last year, sort by heart rate, and then it would come back. Otherwise, it's going to come back in chronological order, which is what I want anyway. So I'm just going to keep it as its default state. And to keep it as its default state, you just simply say nil. So I have no sort descriptor. And then the important thing here, the magic, is what do you want to do after the query has been run? So let's do that. When I run the query, I get three things. The query itself, I get the results, and I get an error. And so let's handle each one of those things inside of here. So let's just pretend like we didn't get any error. We'll just roll with it. If you've got an error, then you can do if error, same thing that we did it before. What we're just going to do is just get the results and check them out. So what I'm going to say is, all right, I want to see the results. And we're just going to print all weights for now, just so you can see what it looks like. And we'll build it. I've already been given permission for the weight, and I have success in loading the error. Now, this didn't work, so because I never ran it. Sorry, my bad. All right, so finally, once we've constructed our query, we actually have to execute the query. So down here, I'm just going to say self.healthStore. So that health store that we created at the very beginning, execute against it a query. Which query? The sample query that we just wrote above. And now I'll build it. And when it runs, this is the results that it gets back from HealthKit, which looks like gobbledygook, but if you go through it nice and slow, you can kind of see what it's doing. So it's saying, hey, one of the entries we had was 100 pounds. That was one from 2 days ago. And it was entered on this device. You can see it was HK was user entered. It was 1, meaning true. So this was manually entered into HealthKit. It wasn't logged from some other app. You can see if I keep on scrolling down, you can see yesterday's weight was 200 with yesterday's date stamp. If I keep on going, you can see that I have today's weight at 300. So the result is working. And you can see that's super complicated. And it's just this giant array of, not even an array, it's just giant data pile of crap. What's great about HealthKit is that this giant data pile of crap, you can actually just, it has all the tools that you need to do something with that. So what I'm going to do is say, hey, you know what? I don't care about all the weights in the history of my user. I just want to get their most recent weight. So what I want to do is take results. Well, hold on a second. I messed it up. I want to take results and convert them from just a blob of data into a collection of HK quantity samples, because I know what they are. So I'm going to say, all right, treat results, but not just as a blob of data, treat it as if it is, which we know it is, an array of HK quantity samples. So this would be the same thing as when we were doing Pokemon, and you were to say like an array of Pokemon is what the Pokédex is. This is the same thing. We're saying, hey, this results is an array of these things. And once I do that, I get all the superpowers that I get with all those things. So I can convert, for instance, weight from kilograms to ounces to pounds, because it knows that a body mass is a measurement of weight and that this quantity type is body mass. And so now you have all those superpowers. So what I'm going to do is just pull out the current weight out of this. And when you think about it, if all weights is in chronological order, then the current weight is just the most recent weight. And so that's the last thing in the array. So I'm just going to go into all weights and just get the last one. And I would just, out of that blob of data that we have scrolling through here, there's a bunch of things I could get out of it. For instance, I could get the date that that quantity was logged. That's not what I want. What I want to do is get the actual value for that quantity. So that's quantity. The problem is I don't know what weight is measured inside of HealthKit. I don't know if it's weighted in milligrams or nanograms or kilograms or pounds or ounces. I don't know what it's measured in. So I want to convert it into something that makes sense. So I want to convert it into a double, and specifically in pounds. And you can convert these things, not pound, but you can convert these things into all kinds of stuff. So right here, I said pound, but if you just say, hey, Xcode, tell me what you think I might want. You know, these are all the various things that I can convert it into. Please note it's not smart. So for instance, I can say convert my weight into miles. Well, that makes no sense, right? So you've got to be careful that you're converting in a format that makes sense for the data type that you have. So I'm going to say I want it in pounds. Okay, so now current weight is it measured in pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and print current weight. And if I build this, you'll see down here, it returns 300.0 pounds. So that is what I needed. And so now I have everything I want out of HealthKit. Now this was a pain in the butt to get there, but I have it and it's just normal data. And so I can now lob it back into the main app and use it. Before we do that, let's just walk through it one more time to see all the pieces, okay? So the body itself is unchanged from the default, except I added onAppear, which runs the request permission dialog box. The request permission dialog box here is where we request our permissions. And first, we create an array of all the things I care about. So for me, for this app, all I'm getting is body mass. But again, I could put anything inside of that list. So we've already scrolled through the ginormo list, but you can see here's all the ones that are just quantity types that are available to me. And there's a lot more that are characteristic types. So I want dietary. Nope, body mass, my bad. If you were to change from quantity type to a different type, you would just change it here and here. Once I have the types that I want, now I just send a request to this health store, which I created right here, for permission. And then I test, all right, was it successful or was there an error? If it was successful, then run the fetch weight data function. And that's right here. And this guy is the meat and potatoes of the actual working with HealthKit. So first, I tell it what type of data I want to pull. Next, I tell it from when I want to pull it. So I got to start for now and all the way back in time. And remember, this is our calculation to get 1 week. You can modify that to get more or less. Using that date range, I create a date range, which we call a predicate. And so this is creating a predicate for samples from the start date to the end date, and we want to be really strict about it. Next, we build our query, and our query is it's a lot of code, but it's relatively simple. It's just using the data types that we had that we created up above, using the predicate that we created up above. We're saying there's no limit. We don't want to sort it in any particular way. And here's how we handle results. Specifically, how we want to handle results is take all the weights that you got, convert them into an array of HK quantity samples, and then set a variable called current weight to the last value of all weights and convert it from whatever HealthKit says it is into pounds. And then we're printing current weight. After this is where we're going to actually lob it back into the app. But do you have any questions at this point? Okay, awesome. Okay. So last, let's set up our actual view to receive that information. So down here in the body, I'm going to set this all up. So first thing, all these functions are inside the view, but above the body. So I'm going to add a state variable right here. And I'm going to call it current weight. And I'm going to set it just a default double value. So just 0.0 is what current weight is. And what we'll do is allow HealthKit to modify current weight. Then we'll display that down here. So instead of saying hello world, we'll have it convert double weight into a string. So if I were to build this, we haven't wired it up yet, but if I were to build it, you'll see that it just has a single view that's just 0.0. And what we're going to do is change 0.0 current weight from being 0.0 to whatever it actually is out of HealthKit. And so to do that, we just got to remember we're changing the state variable current weight. And so up here in our fetching weight data function in the query, when you are done with the query, what do you want to do? Well, right now we're just printing current weight. What we actually want to do is go back into the main timeline of the app in the same way that we did the other day with location data, because it takes a while for location data to come back or to make requests to MapKit. Same thing with this. It takes a while to make these queries run in HealthKit, and so we have to go back into the main timeline. So to do that, we're just going to simply say, all right, go into the dispatch queue. Go into the main one, and asynchronously do this. Specifically, what I want you to do, I just want you to go into the view and change the value of current weight. So change that state variable, and set it to this current weight. And I promise current rate is real. And so exclamation point to make sure that works. And if I build it, you'll see that now I get the current weight that's in HealthKit. And if I were to change it and add some more data to HealthKit and rerun my app, this would be a new piece of data. Make sense? Okay, cool. So let's build on this basic idea. Once you have this framework in place, it's really easy to add more stuff. So what I'm going to do is not just show current weight. Let's have a list where current weight is shown really big at the top. I don't know why it's not letting me mess with that, but I could, add some modifiers to make this text really big. Then what I'm going to do is have a list underneath, and the list is going to have all the weights that I could possibly want. And so I'll say, all right, we'll use all weights. Get a state variable going that holds all the weights. And that is an array of doubles. So we'll just do it like that. And then, whoops, I messed that up. I'll fix that in a second. And then we just need to set all weights to every single weight that we have. So we have all weights right here. And so what we're going to do is not just set current weight to current weight. We're going to set that all weights to all weights. It'll give me an error because this is wrong. So I'll fix that really quick. So all weights will now hold a giant array of HK quantity samples. And then inside of our list, we'll just go one by one and spit out the weight. Make sense? Cool. All right, this is the part I always forget is how to structure that. I think it's like this. Give me a second. So what we're doing is we're going through all the weights, making a list starting at 0 and going up to the total number of things we have in all weight. Each time through, there's going to be we're going to keep an index, and then we just simply say, all right, go into all weights and do the same thing I had done up here with current weight to each one. So what current weight is I converted the quantity into a double value for pound. We're going to do the same thing here. So go ahead and get the quantity and get the double value for pound. And that should work. What's it not like? Oh, and the preview can't work, so who cares? We don't need the preview anyway. Oh, something else doesn't like. Sorry, not pounds. Pound singular. My bad. There we go. Oh my gosh. So that closes that text. That closes the 4. Looks like I have an extra one in there. So that closes the text. That closes that. That closes that. Maybe I don't have enough. Here, we'll just do it a little bit more manual. That should do it. Goodness gracious, what is my problem now? Oh, okay. I got to set a default value for my current weight, for all weights, but you get the basic idea, right?
Yeah.
Cool. I'll fix this and then post it fixed in a second. All right.